In the last session, we were talking about support vector machine, and we have seen how one of the flavors of support vector machine you can make use of. So last time in the last session we talked about support vector classifier or how to create a classification model with the help of support vector machine. That's what we have seen. Just to continue with that, today we will talk about another flavor of support vector machine, and that is the word SVR, support vector regressor. So let me go to IPY file and let's see how it can be done, how support vector regressor can be implemented here. Okay. So as I told you that this support vector machine algorithm is actually used for classification as well as regression, both, for both it is used. And for classification, SVC is used. You just need to go and you need to call a method called as SVC. Similarly, in case of prediction or regression model, you need to call SVR. That's the only difference, right? So otherwise, both of them they are nothing but support vector machine. So let me go and open this IPYND file, and let's start with the uh, development of support vector regression model or regression model. So if you people remember, in case of linear regression, we have seen admission underscore prediction dot CSV file, right? Same data I am going to make use of, but instead of linear regression, now we will be making use of support vector regression. So this is what we have seen till now. All these things. I hope everyone is clear, right? As I told you, you will be getting this particular file once I upload the video. Then you can refer. Right? So this particular dataset we have wine quality dash rate.ch. So it was a problem of classification, whether the quality is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on till 10, depending on all these features. So it was a pure problem of classification, depending on all these input features. These are the input features, and quality was our output feature. So yes, as I told you that support vector machine is a supervised, it makes use of supervised learning approach. So that's why that means the data is labeled. This is what we have seen yesterday, all about classification model. I hope everyone is clear till this point. And yes, this was the last one, accuracy. And one more point we have seen how to improve the accuracy. So earlier for support vector for classification model which we have implemented with the help of support vector classifier, the accuracy which we were getting was 60%, but it was very low. For example, in that case we assume that it's low. That's why we use something called as grid search, and with the help of grid search, we try to pass some parameters like C and gamma. Again, there are other parameters also we could have passed, like C we passed and gamma we have passed. We could have passed other values for kernel and all those things. Right? Different options are available. So here we pass all these values for C and these values for gamma. So whatever is the best value, cross validation is going to choose the best value for this particular algorithm for this data automatically. You don't have to worry about that, right? So we try to train according to the, we try to fit according to the training data, and then actual training was once again done with the help of these parameters. These are the best parameters which cross validation has written. Grid search cross validation has written. There is a method called as grid search cross validation with the help of which you can go and try to increase the accuracy of the model. So once we got these values, best values for C and gamma, we pass those values to SVC method, and then again we started training the model based on training data. Right? So SVC C is equal to 10 and gamma is equal to 1. We created object of that, and then we have written object dot fit based on training data. Right? And now we have seen that, we noticed that okay, the accuracy is increased by 2%. So earlier it was 60, now it is 62.68. This is what we have seen till now in case of support vector machine, that is support vector classifier we have built. Let's try to talk about support vector regression. Right? I told you regression means the prediction. So in case of SVM, we have SVC and SVR, support vector classifier and support vector regressor. So as we want to build a model with the help of support vector regression, that means we are going to do prediction here. So admission underscore prediction.csv, everyone knows what is that data, GRE score, TOEFL score, statement of purpose and all, right? So let's talk about linear regression first, which we have already seen, right? Which we already implemented and discussed. In linear regression, how to determine the best fit line, we have seen that. Even we talked about a theoretical example, and in that case, I have shown you how to come up with a line of best fit, right? Line of best fit line, we call it, or regression line. So if you remember, it was something like this, right? This is we were having some data, right? Some data points were there like this. So assume that a lot of data points are there. Now line of best fit or regression line or best fit line always passes through dense area. So if this is your line of best fit, it means that it is passing through dense area. Suppose this purple, this pink color is the line of best fit, right? So it should pass through dense area. Line of best fit, or we call it as best fit line. As we have seen the equation of straight line, right? Y is equal to mx plus c. It is drawn with the help of the slope and the y-intercept. How that, for that we have actually talked about an example. So if this is your line of best fit, I told you that line of best fit should pass through dense area. That means the distance from original data, this distance, or this one, or this one, this one, right? This distance should be as minimum as possible, right? Because this is going to be what? This is going to be the error or the residue. So our target will be what? This distance should be as minimum as possible. Now, so if you remember how we drawn the line of base fit, how we come up with the line of base fit, what is the logic behind that, what were the steps, what were the steps which you followed, same thing we are going to make use of in case of support vector regressor for creating the prediction model. Okay. So the idea is to create a line which minimizes the residual error, and that is nothing but line of best fit. Because that's how, by keeping this particular thing into mind, we draw a line of best fit. That's the logic behind that. So support vector regressor approach is a bit different. Instead of trying to minimize the error, which we actually done in case of linear regression, support vector regressor focuses on keeping the error in fixed range. Now, what do you mean by this? It means it is going to come up with, obviously, it will come up with a line if you have some data set like this, right? So if these are the data points, and if this is your line of best fit, if this is your line of best fit, what support vector regressor does is it's going to come up with two more lines. For example, something like this and something like this. Two more lines. How? So it is going to create this kind of a pipe. In simple words, if I want to tell you, it is going to create this kind of a pipe. So it is this particular line, whatever you are able to see in pink color, this is similar to having base fit line. But there is a difference in making use of this line, whatever we have seen in case of linear regression and whatever we are going to see here in support vector regression. There is a difference. Earlier, as I told you, earlier our target was what? Our target was to minimize this error, right? To minimize this error. But what is this actually? So this, consider this as a distance, right? So obviously this will be plus some constant alpha, this will be minus some constant alpha, plus minus alpha, we can say this is going to be plus minus alpha. So this alpha is actually what? This alpha is actually the distance from hyperplane. What is this alpha? Alpha hyperplane is what? So you can imagine this as a hyperplane, for example. So this alpha is the distance from the hyperplane. Okay. Now, how we are going to come up with this line and this line? So if this is the outlier point and this is also outlier point, see, This is outlier point, for example, and this is also outlier point on this side. Now, what is outlier? That we are already aware of. How to get the outlier points. So, if you remember, uh, we have seen in basic Python, we have seen something called as describe. Data frame name dot describe. So, data frame name dot describe, if you do, it is going to show you mean, then it is going to show you 25 percentile, that is Q1, Q2, Q3, and so on. And there is one plot which you can go and which you can draw, that is called as box and whisker plot. Box and whisker plot or box plot. With the help of box and whisker plot, which you can draw with the help of Seaborn package, it helps you to know outlier values. Okay, it finds out the outlier values. What is outlier values? Outlier values is very much different from other values. So if these two are the outlier values, we are going to come up with this line and this line in such a way that it will be nearer to the outlier, but not it is not going to include the outlier. Right? That means except outlier, this line and this line will be drawn in such a way that all the other points, maximum points are going to come inside this pipe. Okay, so maximum number of data points. We try to adjust value of this this particular alpha in such a way that it contains this pipe contains maximum number of points. So like this, what we do, we try this line, this line. It's not like that we are going to draw only two lines. Like this, we will draw maximum number of lines. This one, or this one, and this one. So according to all these lines, we will draw this kind of a pipe, for example. This kind of a pipe will be, you can imagine it like a pipe. So whatever the pipe which fits maximum number of data points and gives the best residual or gives the best result, select that value of epsilon. See, as I told you, if these are your data points, right, and if this is your line of base fit, now on this side and on this side of line of base fit, see, on this side of line of base fit and on this side of line of base fit, what happens is we try to draw as many number of lines as possible. Suppose these two lines are drawn. This is one thing. Suppose this line and this line is drawn. So like this, number of lines will be drawn. But which pipe will be selected or which combination of lines will be selected? That combination of line which is going to contain maximum number of points and which gives the best result. That particular line, those particular lines will be selected. And obviously, to adjust the value of this epsilon, there is something called as hyperparameter tuning, which is hyperparameter tuning. Hyperparameter tuning is something which we have done earlier in case of support vector classifier by adjusting the values of the parameters of that particular method. For example, in SVC, we tried to get the value of C and we tried to get the value of gamma, if you remember. We passed multiple values to this and multiple values to this. And whatever was the best value, algorithm has chosen that best value according to the data set. That is nothing but hyperparameter tuning. Okay, so something like this will be done in case of support vector regression, and whatever the lines which gives the best result, that those lines will be chosen. Now let's see here. So instead of trying to minimize the error, SVR focuses on keeping the error in fixed range, that is that 5. This approach can be explained using 3 lines. Now same thing, whatever I have talked about, same thing you will be able to see here. The first line is the best fit regressor line and the other two lines are bordering ones which denote the range of error. Now try to check here. This is your line of best fit. Other two lines. So the green lines which you are able to see like this, a lot of lines will be drawn. And they will be drawn in such a way that maximum number of points will be covered inside this pipe. So line determining the error boundaries. Ax plus b is equal to plus minus e or plus minus epsilon, whatever you want to say. So these lines will be chosen in such a way that maximum number of points will be covered and it should give best result. That means minimum error. So again, that you don't have to worry, algorithm is going to take care of that. Okay. So what does this mean? It means that we are going to consider the points inside plus minus error boundary only for preparing our model. In other words, the best fit line, that is hyperplane, will be the line which goes to the maximum number of data points, that is dense area. And the error boundaries are chosen to ensure maximum inclusion. These are error boundaries. These green color lines are error boundaries. So this error term can be customized using epsilon, defined for scikit-learn support vector regressor. So as we talked about SVC, support vector classifier, there is a method called as SVR, support vector regressor. In SVR, you will be able to see this epsilon value. Now, how to find out the value of epsilon? You don't have to worry about that. What you can do is you just pass multiple values for epsilon, maybe 0 0.1, 0 0.2, 1, 10, whatever you want. Whatever is the best value, algorithm is going to choose that. But by default, there is some value. I think it is 0.1. This is the default value of epsilon. But yes, if you see that the accuracy is not up to the mark, you can go and you can make use of hyperparametric tuning and try to increase the accuracy of the model. Okay. Okay. So someone is asking, sir, can you repeat what's the use of error boundary lines? So the use of error boundary lines here, which you are able to see, that is this one and this one. The use of this one is that it will make sure that uh, it will consider maximum number of data points, right, within this area. These error boundaries will be drawn in such a way that it will include maximum number of data points with minimum error. Are you getting, Sharon? That is the use of maximum these boundary lines, and that will be drawn how, by adjusting the value of epsilon. Who will take care for this? SVR will take care for that, right? So by default, the value of epsilon is plus minus epsilon is 0.1. This is a standard value. You can try it out with other value. Okay, that's possible. So it can be 0.01 also. This is how you can actually go in the case of SVR. So let's see implementation. Okay, so in scikit-learn as usual, we have this particular method available. Support vector regressor. This method is available in that case. Now let's see the implementation of this support vector regressor. As usual, pandas is imported, matplotlib is imported. This line is actually called as magic line. This line is needed whenever we make use of Jupyter notebook. For matplotlib, for Jupyter, you always have to fire this percentage matplotlib space inline, because if you do not run this command, sometimes you might not be able to see the graph. That's why it's called as magic function. There should not be a gap here. Percentage matplotlib space inline. That's why I got a error. Okay. Now this file, which we already seen in case of linear regression, admission underscore prediction.csv. This is the file now I am going to input. And then I am going to create a variable called as df data frame. So pandas of read underscore csv. This is what we are using. Same step which we have done in case of linear. df.head command by default shows you 5 rows. So yes, I am able to see 5 rows. We can check serial number, GRE, TOEFL, university rating, segment of purpose, letter of recommendation, CGPA research, and what is the chance of the admission. So first 5 records are shown. Once that is done, we will check for missing value. So df.isNA is going to show you true false. If there is a missing value, it will show true, otherwise false. And we are just trying to sum up all the true values. So you know 2 plus 2 is 2. True is nothing but 1. False is 0. So as we notice it, while we were implementing linear regression, in that case also we noticed that GRE score is having 15 missing values. Open score is having 10 and university rating is having again 15 missing. So yes, there is a need to handle these missing values. So as we can see, there are some column with missing values. We need to impute those missing values. Right? Imputation process we already discussed. So I am just going to handle the missing values from GRE score, TOEFL score, and university rating. As GRE score is continuous data, so I can go and I can replace the missing value with mean of the GRE score, and I am making in place equal to true. That means I want to do that change for per month. Similarly, TOEFL score, Again, I am going to replace the missing value in Tofel score with average of the Tofel score. And university rating is what? University rating is a categorical data. Right? Now you can check here. I am replacing missing value in university rating column with mode of that column. Mode is nothing but the most important. Same thing, exactly same thing, whatever we have done in case of linear regression. Now, once imputation is done, again I am going to fire df.isNA.set. And now this time you can see there is no missing value. Right? And that's why 0, 0, 0 everywhere you are going to see. So yes, that's the imputation what we have done. Now there is a time to divide the data into input and output. So x is the input and y is the output. This is what generally we make use of. So from data frame, that is our complete data, we are going to draw chance of admit and serial number. Chance of admit we are dropping because it's output column, and serial number we are dropping it because we know that serial number is never going to contribute to the chance of admit. And x is equal to 1. We know that in Pandas package, whenever we write an x is equal to 1, it means that we are talking about columns, right? Or the attributes or the features. So except chance of admit and serial number, everything we are going to assign it to x variable. So x is going to be input. And obviously, df of chance of admit, again this is the indexing with the help of a data frame. We are assigning chance of admit to 1. And what are we doing? X dot columns. Now, what will be the output of x dot columns? X dot columns is going to show you all the columns except chance of admit and serial number. So we are assigning it to columns value. That means except serial number and chance of admit, everything is assigned to columns value. Once that is done, then there is a need to split the data. Now, how we split? So from sklearn dot model underscore selection, as usual, we are going to import train test split. See, it's necessary. It's very, very necessary for you people to go and execute this code once you get this. Then only, if you have any doubt, then only it will be clear. I am talking about those people who are interested to execute the code and who are interested to learn more. Right? Execution on your own is very, very important. After that, then you come up with the doubts. You are welcome to ask the doubts. Definitely. Okay? But execution will be very, very important. Keep that in mind. So here I am trying to import train test split. Now, as I shown you yesterday, I already shown you this particular method, right? I've imported that and then I show you that if you go and if you press shift tab, you will be able to see a complete help. You will be able to even see the example. Just go and copy paste it here. So train x, test x, train y, and test y. Or train x, test x, train y, test y. Yeah, these four variables. Train test split, x is the input variable. So that's why I already shown you this one. See, this x is the input variable, y is the output variable. Test size is 33% and random state is equal to 30. That means whatever the data which is going to be divided as training and testing, that should be random. Now I hope there is no need to show you how everything actually works. Data will be divided into input and output, and then that will be divided into training and testing and so on. Right? So from sklearn.support vector machine. From sklearn.support vector machine, I am going to import support vector regressor. As we want to find out what is the problem statement is to predict the chance of admission. That means it's a regression or prediction problem. And that's why we are going to need support vector regressors. This is what we are going to import. Now what am I doing? SVR C is equal to 10. Now what is this C? As we have seen in case of SVC, support vector classifier, there was one parameter C. So even this one also I have discussed yesterday. It is something similar to regularization. Right? Regularization is used for what? Regularization is used to adjust the, if there is a high variance, it is used to take the control on variance. Right? It will not allow your model to be overfitted. Right? So here I am just trying to hard code the value of C as 10. But yes, there is a default value for C also. So SVR is equal to SVR of C equal to 10. We are just calling this SVR method and I am creating object of that. And once that is done, this is the actual train. SVR.fit train x train y. Based on training data, we are trying to train the model. Yes, see, you can check value of C is 10, and here you will be able to see gamma value and somewhere see kernel. Kernel is radial basis function value. But yes, as I told you that there are different kernel methods available, right? Sigmoid, polynomial, hypertangent, linear model, and so on. Definitely, one can go and one can make it out. And as we have made verbose equal to false, that's why we are not able to see whatever is going on here. Okay, so we don't want to see that. That's why we actually did not see something like as verbose equal to false. That's why we are not able to see something like this. So verbose means whether you want to see whatever is going on, that actual training, whether you want to see it or not. Yes, we do not want to see. And that's why verbose equal to false. This one. Okay. So this is the training actually. Once that is done, we can go and we can actually check R square statistics. So as it's a regression model, definitely we can directly find out the R square statistics. So you can check from sklearn.metrics. I am importing R square underscore score, right? And then I am finding out it for what test data. So this is the original output, and this is going to give you predicted output. Difference between them is going to be the error. So we are just going to check what is the accuracy or what is the R square statistic. So you can see that for testing data it is 73.40%, right? And that's why we will go and we will try to improve the accuracy from sklearn dot model underscore selection. I am inputting grid search for validation. So see, we hard coded the value as 10 for C, but this time parameter underscore grid for C I am passing all these values. Whatever is the best value according to the data, algorithm is going to choose that. And same we are going to do it for gamma also. And then again I am passing. I am calling SPR. I am passing parameter grid. What is parameter grid? That means this one. And verbose equal to 3. That means we want to see whatever is going on. That means we will be able to see output in this fashion. And then again grid.fit based on training data. So all these things we are just doing because we want to improve the accuracy. And then what are the best parameters we got? So according the algorithm is saying according to the data the value of C should be 50 and the value of gamma should be 0.01. Out of all these values, whatever we have passed, for gamma it has chosen the best value as 0.01 and the best value for C it has chosen as 50. Now what we will do? With the help of same value now we are going to call SVR once again. So you can see that SVR dot fit. See here I am calling SVR once again with C equal to 50 and gamma equal to 0.01. Whatever the value we got in best parameter C. Grid dot base underscore estimate. What we got C equal to 50. So what I have done is we just copied this particular all these values and we pasted it here. Best parameters. Okay. So SVR underscore new is equal to SVR. And then again train it. So SVR underscore new dot fit train x train y. Now you can check the accuracy once again. So for test data, that is R square underscore score is 74%. So earlier the accuracy was 72, now it is 74.57. So yes, it is slightly improved. Obviously, there is a lot chance to improve the accuracy. Okay? And then last step, we can go and we can save the model. If you want to save the model as pickle, this one we have already seen in case of linear regression. So you need to import a package called as pickle. So finalize underscore model.pickle, this is the name I want to give. And pickle.dump is to dump everything at one place. So dump this particular thing here in this file. What is file name? What we have assigned to file name? That is this file. That is open this file in write and binary mode. That is binary is nothing but executable mode and save the model. Dump the model. Dump this particular model in this file. This is how you can save the model. Okay. After that, now this saved model file will be used for prediction. Right? And as I have shown you earlier in case of linear regression, I actually shown you a Flask model. Right? I actually shown you a web application. Same web application you can create with the help of this file also. But in this case, it's support vector regressor. In earlier case, it was linear regression. Right? Now, loaded underscore model. If you want to use the model here itself, so what I can do is pickle.load, open the file name in read and binary mode, and pass all these values. So you can see that here we are trying to pass the output directly. This is nothing but what? This is GRE score. This is what? This is Tophet score, right? Again, statement of purpose. This 5 is letter of recommendation. This 5 is university rating. This 10 is CGPA. And this 1 is nothing but what? Whether the research done or not. And this is the chance of admission of that student to get admission in masters, right? In some foreign university. And after that, whatever I have shown you, these are the steps to deploy this model onto Amazon Web Services, AWS. But again, this is not the part of your syllabus. That's why I will not discuss it here. If you get some time, and if you people are interested later on, then we can go and we can think of deploying this particular model onto cloud. Okay. And in this earlier we use which cloud? Earlier we used Heroku cloud. And in this case, the steps for Amazon Web Services, AWS cloud are shown to deploy the model. So this is all about this topic, support vector machine from your syllabus. Okay. So we have seen support vector regressor, as well as we talked about support vector classifier. Okay. Now the time is to move to the next topic, that is nothing but distance based models. So distance based models, to go and discuss about, before going and discussing about these models, first of all, one should have an idea about how to calculate the distances, how the distances are calculated between some of the points. So what are the formulas? What are the techniques which are used to calculate the distance between 2 points? Okay, I think I lost it in between. Just a minute, guys. Let me share the screen once again, and then we will continue. Let me check. Let me share the screen. Okay. I hope everyone is able to see the screen. Okay. So we want to start with this topic, distance based models, right? And then maybe in coming sessions we'll be talking about neighbors, we'll be talking about nearest neighbor classification. Here we'll be talking about one algorithm, and that is nothing but nearest neighbor classification, that is nothing but KNN algorithm. K nearest neighbor algorithm we will be talking about. Okay. So before going and discussing about that particular algorithm or technique, let me talk about some distance formulas which one can make use of in all these algorithms, or some distance formulas with the help of which you can go and you can calculate the distance between the points in the plane. Some of those you might be knowing about it already, some might be new for you, but let's see. Again, this kind of a thing you might have come across in schools or in colleges, right? Because see, everything whatever we have discussed in mathematics, whatever we have seen in mathematics, that is going to be very useful in case of machine learning. So first of all, I will just go and revise those things, and then we will move to this one, neighbors. That is KNN algorithm, K nearest neighbor algorithm. We are going to discuss, and then I'll be showing you the implementation of even KNN algorithm also. Let's start with this distance based models. Let's start with this. So let me go and let me talk about those methods which can be very useful to calculate the distances. So as we want to talk about, let me change the color here. As we want to talk about distance based models. Now, which are the distance based models, or which models are called as distance based models? The models where distances are used, or distances are calculated, or calculation of distance is used as a criteria for building classification models or for building regression models. Those kinds of models are called as distance based models. Now, distances between what? Distances between the data points. Okay, so for example, if I have this kind of a data set, and here suppose I have this data point in the plane, it's a 2 dimensional data, right? This is x-axis, this is y-axis, right? And here suppose there are 2 points. Like this, there are a lot of points, but yes, just imagine that there are only 2 points. Now, how to calculate the distance between 2 points, between these 2 points. So there are a lot of ways. One of the common ways is to use, you might have heard about that distance, and that is called as Euclidean distance. Euclidean distance formula can be used to calculate the distance between the points in the plane. If this is point P1, if this is point P2. So what Euclidean distance says that, see, point P1 can be represented as with the help of coordinates, right? So this is suppose x1, y1, and P2 is represented as x2, y2. We know that every point can be represented with x and y. So let's suppose P1 is represented with x1, y1, and P2 is represented with the help of x2, y2. Now the question is, what is the difference between P1 and P2? P2? How to calculate that? See, why are we discussing all these things? That you will come to know once we start with the algorithm itself. Because KNN kind of algorithm or nearest neighbor kind of algorithm actually make use of distances to classify the data, to predict something from the data. So if this is your P2 and if this is your P1, let's see how Euclidean distance can be used to calculate the distance between the 2 points. So the formula, it goes like this. Euclidean distance is equal to under root of x2 minus x1 whole square plus y2 minus y1 whole square. This is what is going to happen in the backend, or in the background. This is what is going to happen. So Euclidean distance is the common method which is used to find out the distances between the points in the plane. But the thing is that there is not only Euclidean distance. There are other methods also which can be used to find out the distances between the points in the plane. So whenever we talk about distance, right? So whatever the models which we make use of calculation of distance to create classification and regression models, those models are called as distance-based models. So the ways to calculate the distances are, or the methods are, first one we already seen. First one is Euclidean distance. This is the first method. Then second method is something called as Hamming distance. This you might have heard about, Hamming distance. So this is also one thing which can be used to calculate the distances between the points in the plane. Euclidean distance always considers shorter distance. So yes, Euclidean distance is actually used to find out the shorter distance only. But what are we going to do? We are going to find out the distance of one point from all the data points. For that, we will be making the Euclidean distance. So yes, it's used for shorter distance only. And we want to calculate the shorter distance. That's why we are making use of this kind of formulas. Right, Sharon? But yes, there is not only Euclidean distance. That's why I am trying to give idea about other formulas also. Then there is something called as, after Hamming distance, there is something called as Manhattan distance. Right, something called as Manhattan distance. So yes, this also can be used to calculate the distance between the points in the plane. This is one thing. So let's see in which type of a data one can make use of which type of a distance. So let me just go here and let me first of all let me clear this one. Euclidean distance formula actually we already seen under root of x2 minus x1 whole square plus y2 minus y whole square. Remember this kind of a diagram, right? Now here, if I go and if I otherwise let me write down this formula. See, Euclidean distance we already seen, right? So something like, let me write it down. So Euclidean distance formula is something like under root of x2 minus x1 whole square plus y2 minus y1 whole square. There x2 x1 x2 x1 y2 y1. These are the points for which we have the value. Okay, that was the Euclidean distance. Now talking about this Manhattan distance. This one. Talking about this Manhattan distance. Suppose there are 2 points, right? How to calculate the distance between them? Suppose, see, it is something like this. So if you want to talk about the formula of Manhattan distance, it should be, let me just do one. Let me do all this first. it should be spread. Suppose something like this is there, right? Now, if this is suppose maybe P, if this is suppose B, and this is suppose H. So we actually try to calculate this one, P plus B, distance between the points. P plus B, this is what we calculate. So formula of Manhattan distance, it goes something like this. If we have 2 points like this, P1, right? This is P1 and this is P2. If we have two data points in the plane, Manhattan distance can be calculated with the help of something like this. So magnitude of x1 and x2 plus magnitude of y1 minus y2. This magnitude is just used to get the absolute difference, right? Positive difference. It's just for absolute difference. Okay, so now the question is when to make use of Manhattan distance to calculate the distance between the points in the plane. So always remember, whenever the data is very big, right, very big data in size, in that case one can go with Manhattan distance. Otherwise, most of the times you will see that Euclidean distance is used by default. Okay, so this is all about Manhattan distance in short. So as I've shown in this particular figure, something like you can come up with this kind of a figure. Suppose if this is x-axis, this is y-axis. Now this is one point, this is another point. This is suppose point P1, this is suppose point P2. Right? Now to find out this particular distance between P1 and P2, right? That is in this case this h, for example. What we make use of this? We make use of P and D. So what we do is we draw this line and we draw this line. Okay, and then we know that P1 is x1 y1 and P2 is x2 y2, right? So this will be x1, this will be x2. Similarly, this will be y1 and suppose this will be y2. So the formula for Manhattan distance is something like this. Again, why are we discussing all these things? Because we have a topic called as Manhattan distance. Okay, that's why we discuss this. Now talking about Hamming distance. Now see, there will be questions in your exam. Those people who joined right now, okay, I'm just trying to tell them. There will be questions based on all these topics. So one should know the formulas about all these distances because we have a topic called as distance-based models. Okay. Talking about Hamming distance makes use of only two values. It makes use of only two values, either 0 or 1. So, and remember, it is used for categorical variables. This is very, very important. It is used for categorical variables. So, there will be a question. Which type of a distance can be used for categorical variables? Your answer should be Hamming distance. So, for example, let me give a simple example. Suppose you have maybe you have some data set, and in that data set you have a column called as zip code. So, this is your column, right? This is your feature attribute. In this you have different values, zip code. Now suppose there is a value one zip code, there is another zip code, maybe there is suppose another zip code, maybe again person with same pin code, maybe again person with same pin code. So value 1, value 2, value 3, value 1, value 2, and so on. Depend so obviously there will be name of the person, address of the person, and zip code. Obviously, in that case, zip code is going to repeat if the area is same. So, how you can make use of Hamming distance here is, see, if there is a different class, so people belonging to zip code value 1, they'll be in one class. People belonging to zip code value 2, they'll be in another class, and so on. So, if value 1, okay, this value 1, whatever it is, if value 1 is not equal to value 2, then Hamming distance is going to be 1, right? Otherwise, if value 1 is equal to value 2, if value 1 is equal to value 2, then Hamming distance is going to be 0. right? That means what? That means 0 shows same value, and this Hamming distance equal to 1, it shows different class, right? This is how one can make use of Hamming distance in case of categorical variables, right? So in concern with that particular topic, that is distance based models, I hope you people are now clear with what is Euclidean distance, what is Hamming distance, and what is Manhattan distance. As I told you that, see, what we want to discuss finally, we want to discuss one algorithm that is called as K nearest neighbor. KNN is the algorithm which we want to discuss, and we want to implement that. And believe me, the KNN is the best algorithm. It has been seen that KNN is the best algorithm for classification. Whenever there are problems to be solved for classification, KNN is always the first choice in most of the cases. Obviously, it will depend on data set also. I will not say all the time KNN is going to give a higher accuracy, but it has been seen that in most of the cases, KNN is going to give you good accuracy for classification types of problems, right? So if you want to go and if you want to see, let me clear everything. Again, if you want to see, you can go and check it, right? With very simple example, I have explained this KNN. So before implementation, if you really want to understand it, you can go and you can actually refer this kind of a video, right? KNN algorithm. Now, if you go and if
Hello
you
guys,
check,
today I'm going to talk.
if you go and if you try to see under distance based model, see, it is not like that only KNN is the algorithm which makes use of these distances. There are other algorithms also which make use of all these distances which we have discussed. But as in your syllabus, they are talking about neighbors and examples. Example is will be KNN. As I told you, you can go and you can refer this video if you want. Right? KNN example explained with simple. So KNN algorithm explained with simple example. Very simple example is shown. It is not that much difficult because it will help you to understand and implement. Okay, KNN you will see, but as I told you, it is not KNN. There are other algorithms. For example, K-means is also one algorithm which makes use of some distances between the data points. But the difference between KNN and K-means is that KNN is used for classification and K-means is used for clustering. Till now, we haven't talked about clustering. I have just given you a basic idea about what is clustering. But yes, clustering and classification, they are not same. There is a difference between them. Once we will start with, whenever we will start with K-means algorithm, at that time I will once again go and once again revise what is clustering actually, right? So that will give a very good idea about the difference between classification and clustering, because I have seen people having a lot of confusion between clustering and classification. Remember, they are not same. Best example for classification is KNN algorithm and clustering is K-means. For clustering, there is one more algorithm that is called as DBSCAN, which is not there in your syllabus, which is again a good algorithm. Okay, but yes, again K-means is also good, which is famous algorithm. So remember, whatever we require for KNN and K-means algorithm, that is the concept of distances, we have discussed that here. So next time I will assume that you people are aware about all the formulas for calculating the distances. And then I can go and I can directly show you the explanation and the implementation. Okay. So this is what I wanted to talk about for today. I will stop here and we will continue in the next session. So save your numbers.